Okay, this is part 2 again. Just want to say that this is not going to be an amazing video, so you don't have to watch it if you don't want to.
Of his public descent to the earth, visible to everybody, when he sets his feet upon the Mount of Olives and when he restores the kingdom to Israel.
So this is talking about A.J. Miller. A.J. Miller was the guy who inspired the Jesus character. So A.J. Miller is going to come forward and expose himself as being Christ, or no, not being Christ. He's going to expose himself as being the real Jesus, and he's going to lead people to Israel, which is me. I'm the real Christ. What he's going to know, I don't know. Does he know anything at this point, or is he just going to, I would like to meet him, and I would like to tell him that I'm Eve, the rebirthed or reincarnated version of Eve, and then I would like to tell him to make prophecies. Well, we're going to give him lots of power, get 1,400 people to promote him on Instagram, and then get him to warn the public that that Eve's arrival is here. Oh no, not that Eve's arrival here, but that the Messiah is, that Christ is not him, but is someone else, and he's going to come in the future. And people are going to be like, oh yeah, this is the beast that rises up, the second beast. There's two beasts. First there's one beast, and then there's a second beast. So they're going to be all waiting for the second beast. Martin, I don't know if Martin wants to get involved, but he could then come in March. I don't know how the timeline should be, but yes.
The best way to reconcile these two contradictory, seemingly, comings, the rapture versus the public descent of Jesus, is to understand that these verses describe two phases or two aspects of the Lord's second coming. One has to do with the church, and the other aspect has to do with the nation Israel. The rapture of
the church is the nation of Israel. No, one has something to do with people, A.J. Miller's rise, and people learning that A.J. Miller was the guy who inspired the Jesus character, and then the other one is about me being taken from what I'm going through and then put into another, into a house for 7 years. But yeah, I think I'm actually going to be put straight into a fake sacrifice. So the 7 years where I'm saved will have to be after that. So yeah, but people could think that that's when the 7 year covenant was made. But to be honest, if the 7 year covenant is supposed to be a peace deal, I'm so angry. I am in no mood to make a peace deal. So I don't actually think the 7 year. If I get married, or if something happens for the sacrifice and for when people are first told that I'm Christ, I don't think the 7 year covenant will actually start then. I think you could do a 7 year marriage covenant, or fake something saying I'm going to be married to you for 7 years, but really I don't think that's actually when it starts. I think it starts probably a year later after the fake sacrifice has happened. That's when I go off it and properly hide.
Of the church comes first, when Jesus meets his church in the air to take his bride away to his Father's house.
I go to the Father's house. I expose myself as being Christ through the media. That is when the world sees the real Christ, sees the real church, which is me.
His glorious appearing on earth later will occur 7 years later, when he returns publicly to the earth together with all the saints to redeem Israel.
So I'm assuming after 7 years there'll be a lot less people on earth, and the Matrix would be able to filter out all the ones that have died and choose which ones are best, which ones don't torture animals. I mean, that would be definitely. I think I should probably write a list of who I most want to disappear. People who marry children, people who torture animals, people who just have a complete lack of consideration towards others, people who have very little common sense. This is another one that
The first aspect of the second coming is called the rapture, or the catching away, simply because the New Testament Greek word meaning caught up was translated into Latin, from which we get the word rapture. 1 Thessalonians 4:17 tells us that living believers will be caught up or raptured to meet resurrected believers and the Lord in the clouds. Both the rapture in the atmosphere and the second coming to earth explain how the Lord's return can happen both before and after the tribulation period.
The reason why it's been worded in the way that it's worded is because the Bible is for fools and idiots. And if you take it very seriously, then you are a fool. If you just take it lightly and you want hope and you want to believe something, then fine. But if you take it very seriously and believe all this, it's actually prophesying your death and saying that you're the type that needs to go. You know, I am the bride, I am the one who gets caught up, I am the one that gets caught away. But people who read the Bible and believe that it's about them, they're not able to understand it properly because they think that the woman getting caught up is them, and they don't realize that it's actually just a woman. But if you are someone who is caught up and believe that this is all about you and you going into paradise, into another realm, I feel like you've got no sense of reality. And if you've got no sense of reality, how can you help reality if you're stuck in delusions and refusing to accept the truth? You know, I'm going to come on the stage at some point and I'm going to say this to people, and that will be the chance that you have to convert. You know, if I say that I'm Israel and the rapture of the bride is actually about the saving of me, are you going to be someone that's just like, oh, okay, well, I feel foolish for thinking that was me? Or are you going to be someone that's like, no, you're not, and then I'm the one that gets raptured, I'm the one, you know, if you're that type of person, then you're the one that's stuck in delusion and not believing Christ.
Period. It explains why the church is not present during chapters in the book of Revelation that describe the Great Tribulation.
That's nonsense. It talked about the church and then it started calling the church a bride. That's all it did, because the church is the bride, but it's a deception to make the bride seem like many people, not just one. And that's done because it's part of the trickery. Who are you going to believe? When Christ comes, who is me, are you going to believe me, or are you going to believe an old book? If you choose to worship an old book written by man thousands of years ago who didn't know the truth, then you are believing lies.
Well, various men of God, such as Chuck Missler of blessed memory, Pastor John McCosner, Pastor Derek Walker, Pastor Andy Woods, J.D. Farage, and many others explain the differences between Bible verses that describe both the rapture and the second coming. These various verses tell us that at the rapture, the church meets the Lord in the air. Only the Lord's true believers will see him at the rapture. However, at the second coming, the Lord...
Yeah, at the rapture, when I'm raptured and taken to a nice house in America, I would, you know, the world will see me. The whole world will see me and know me, or know my name and basic things about me. But they'll only see me as being Christ if they believe. And a lot of people aren't. You might not believe because you might be like, Christ is Jesus, Christ is a male, Christ is rapturing me. So yeah, only people who are able to believe that I'm Christ are going to see Christ, because they're going to see me as Christ. And if they don't see me as Christ, they're just going to see me as a blonde woman who's probably being set up. In fact, they're probably going to assume that the people above me are the ones that are controlling things. So they're just going to see me as a puppet. And likewise, if you plan to ignore me for another few years, I'm actually not even going to appear. I'm going to find some other blonde person who looks like me and acts like me, and I'm going to try and make that person look like Christ. And I'm going to do it because I'm so angry that you've chosen to ignore me for this long. So whether it be me or someone that's posing up as me, I don't even know at this stage, because I'm furious that you've chosen to ignore me for this long. And I have no good memories of my life because my life is so shit, and I can't get any help from anyone because women like this wouldn't believe, and they wouldn't want to know, they wouldn't care. And so what happens will be dependent upon how long you choose to ignore me for. You have destroyed my life, and therefore I have zero interest in humans, because, you know, as far as I'm concerned, every human in the world has had a better life than me. And unless you've literally been forced to live in some sort of jail cell for a very, very long time, you have had a better life than me. So I can't, there's very few people that I can care about because of this. And if you don't like the thought of your Christ saying this to you, well, you are the ones that have done this to me because you are the ones that wouldn't have helped me if I tried to seek help from you.
Lord returns to the earth with the church, and every eye this time will see him. At the rapture, the Mount of Olives is untouched. At the second coming, the Mount of Olives is split in half when the Lord's feet touch down.
After 7 years, everyone who's survived in 7 years probably will believe. There'll be enough destruction on earth for people to think, right, this has got to be what the Bible was talking about. But yeah, there's also going to be a lot of things that are going to be proved wrong in the Bible. There's a lot of shit in the Bible that there's a lot of detailed shit that talks about, like if a woman gives birth, she is unclean for 7 days. I mean, what the fuck are you talking about? So if a woman gives birth, they are unclean. Even if they take a bath, even if they take a shower, they're unclean. Why would you believe such nonsense? I mean, I think it is talking about the 7-year tribulation, but I'm not unclean during that time. Once I've exposed myself as being Christ, and I'm telling the world that I am the woman that's given birth to a new species, basically, of people that can talk to me through time. But yeah, if a lot of people cannot, that doesn't mean that I'm unclean for 7 days. So you're going to look at the Bible thinking, what the fuck was I believing?
At the rapture, the world is not judged, and sin gets worse and worse. But at the second coming, sin is judged, and the world gets better. At the rapture, the bride of Messiah flies to heaven. At the second coming, the bride descends to earth.
When I say fly, it's going on an airplane and going to America. It's not talking about actually flying. I think these people are just so grounded in what the Bible believed. Airplanes didn't exist when the Bible was being written. So they're trying to see things from the perspective of the people that wrote the Bible. When they say the rapture, the bride flies into another place, they're not thinking about airplanes, because they're thinking, well, airplanes didn't exist when this Bible was written, so it can't be talking about that. The air, TV and air stations, and getting TV through the air by satellite and signals, this didn't exist 2,000 years ago, hence the people who wrote the Bible couldn't have possibly been just talking about Jesus being seen on the TV.
From heaven with the Lord. The rapture is imminent. It could happen at any moment, but the second coming is not imminent. It has very distinct signs preceding it, which I'll mention in a moment. The rapture concerns only the saved, whereas the second coming concerns the saved and the unsaved.
The real rapture is when I am saved. The fake rapture is when people believe the only way they can be saved is to kill themselves.
Saved. The rapture is called the believer's blessed hope, a time of joy, whereas the second coming is a cataclysmic time of mourning for sinners upon the earth.
When people, after 7 years, they will know that actually the whole rapture belief was actually just a con. God's con, saying, I'm going to give you a book full of lies, flaws, mixed with truth, and if you believe and then we're going to send the real Christ down, who's a female and not Jesus. And if you refuse to believe the real Christ and choose to worship the Bible, well, you're going to be fed deceptions and lies, such as the rapture is where you go to a different world, when that was all just deception.
So the rapture and the second coming are two different phases with a time period in between. And these two distinctions seem clear to me as I weigh all of the scriptures and study them from Genesis to of those that believe in Yeshua the Messiah is also emphasized. Well, likewise, the documentary that I mentioned called Before the Wrath is all about this biblical typology of stealing away the bride, which was Jesus's picture of the pre-tribulation rapture. You see, there were several stages in a Jewish wedding, the first being the official betrothal, which was the actual marriage ceremony, and any breaking of the betrothal amounted to a divorce.
So I'm going to go to America, have this big wedding where people are allowed to say if they want to marry me or not. And then I could have like a night one, because I prefer the idea of marrying Satan. And then I could have some drinks, and then I can marry a big demon. I much prefer that idea. But yeah, I want to have both. I can marry a picture of a globe ball, make like a model of a globe ball, and I can marry that. And then you can find out who wants to accept that I'm Christ and that I'm the bride of Christ. I can do like a fake marriage where I marry the world. And then I can have a second marriage where I marry a big demon, and I can find out who wants me to marry a big demon. You can ask the public to do votes on what. The marriage thing's just a bit stupid, but why not play on it? Everyone likes a good marriage, and so do I, even if it's all just for publicity.
The bride drank a cup of wine with the bridegroom, showing her agreement, which was binding.
Yeah, I think that is ridiculous. To drink a wine as a sign that you've made an agreement or something, that is ridiculous. But yeah, if you want to make it look like I've agreed to something just by, I don't know, if you're doing the fake rape thing, you know, if you give me a glass and I drink it, and then you start saying, oh, that's proof that he has the right to R-word me or something. I mean, that's an absolutely ridiculous belief. But yes, if you want to say something like that and use the Bible to back it up, you know, clearly my version of the Bible is that it's all wrong and incorrect, and you know, drinking a glass of wine does not confirm anything. You know, you saying I agree, that is how it should be. But yeah, if you want to make up some stupid thing where I've agreed to do something just by drinking a wine without even knowing that there is any sort of agreement attached to it, I don't know. I think that is what the glass of wine is about.
And then they separated for as long as a year, while the young man went to build an addition on his father's house, and the bride prepared herself.
I think that's actually talking about what's happened in the last, in the last 11 years. But technically, now that I've known that it's 11 years that you've been ignoring, that you were going to ignore me for, you know, I'm definitely not in a good mindset at all. And so I think there might be truth to this, because I first need to be saved and taken somewhere, and then I need to build up your trust, because I have no trust in any of you, and I'm probably going to be very angry and aggressive towards anyone that tries to talk to me for a very long time. So I do think that there should be a year where AJ Miller rises, and you do lots of stuff with him, and I want to have lots of interviews with Christians as to why they aren't able to believe that someone like me could be Christ. And I just want to get 15-minute interviews. I'm not going to convert them. They're not going to prove to me. I'm not going to prove that I'm Christ in these 15 minutes. I basically just want to test them on their ability to believe that I could be Christ. And I think there's also a few other things that I would like to test, like people in prison cells, like how, I don't know, that there's a long list of other things that I could test. You know, social services. How bad is social services? How many kids are under foster care just because social services want to make money out of the kids? You know, how bad is the system really? You know, I know people do things for money, and I'm pretty sure that my sister's child is in social care because I don't know why. I don't know why they rejected me, but they shouldn't have rejected me, because I'm capable of looking after a child. I was wanting a child. I'm very, you know, I was passionate about that, and working to build up money to have money so that I could pay for the child. So they would have no reason unless intervened by the Illuminati. But yeah, I want to know the truth about this. You know, what are people's real thoughts, and I want to test there's a lot of things that I can test people on. Also find out, you know, how likely are people able to believe that Christ is female or God is female. And I want to do this before any promotion of God being female is you know, comes to light. So there's a whole bunch of questions that I'd love to ask. So I'd love to spend a year doing these surveys, just to find out people's views, because I can't do anything now. I don't know what people are doing. I can't do anything because people aren't talking to me.
She didn't know exactly when the bridegroom would return, but at the sound of the shofar and with lit torches, the wedding party would approach. The bride would be snatched, and then they would celebrate at the father's house with a wedding feast that lasted 7 days.
So I need to be snatched, go to America, and there needs to be some sort of time where I recover. 9 months, a year is a good thing. I would say 9 months is all that's really needed, but maybe 6 months. But if you're planning on coming to me in the spring, then I'm wondering if it should just be a year and a quarter. Wait another year and a quarter. I don't really know the timings. I know Jesus was supposed to have died between year 20 AD 26 to 33. That was, they said, that the time that Jesus was supposed to die. So that could be a sign that 2026 to 2033 could actually be the real timing of when Jesus, the average person, dies. But yeah, if that's the thing is though, when I first am exposed as Christ, that's not when people are going to start going in the rapture. That's when people are just going to be waiting for Jesus to come. It's only after 9 months and tons of evidence seems to be showing that I am the real Christ. That's when people are really going to be like, right, I am suicidal now, and therefore the deaths are not really going to happen until 6 months after I start rising. So if I start rising in 2000 and summer of 2005, it won't be until 2006 until the deaths of Jesus start actually happening. So if I did wait a whole another year, it would be more like 2027 that the deaths of Jesus starts happening. Jesus being a code for the average person. Jesus represents a fictional character and just average people on earth who think that they're Christ when they're not.
Using these familiar wedding customs, Jesus taught about his return in his parable of the wise and foolish bridesmaids that's found in Matthew chapter 25. Some of the attendants were ready in the parable, but others were not, and they were caught short, and consequently they were barred from entering the wedding feast. In the parable, Jesus...
There's going to be a lot of people that aren't allowed to enter into my wedding feast. I want to set up lots of, like, a Big Brother, worldwide Big Brother kind of idea, where I have a house in America that's really nice, and then I set up lots of different houses all over the world, and there's like a TV show that talks about them, talks about their religion, their view, and then they go up to meet Christ through the air, through video chats, and the public talk to the houses. So the public talk to the houses, and then the house refers their questions onto me. So that way I don't have to deal with 8 billion people. I just have to deal with, say, if there's 14 houses or something, or maybe more, I don't know, 13. I don't know how many houses there'll be around the world. But yeah, if there's like 27 houses all over the world, all in different languages, but the housemates would also need to speak English as well. That would be one of the requirements. But yeah, if the public talk to the housemates and the housemates talk to me, and then they show the video clips to the shows in their country, that's how it should be. But yeah, if I am doing a wedding that's kind of filters down to all these different houses, no, not that many people will actually be in the wedding itself. Very, very few people will actually be in my house where I am, because you can't have the whole world flying out to America in one location, and also a lot of people are going to want to kill me, so because they're not going to see me as being the real Christ.
Jesus said that 5 of the bridesmaids were wise and 5 were stupid. The Greek word in the text is the word for which we get moron in English. Outwardly, all the bridesmaids were indistinguishable.
All the Christians are morons if they don't believe. If they hear that I'm the bride of Christ and they don't believe it, they are a moron.
But inwardly, they were different. The unwise, the foolish maids had no oil for their torches. Oil represents saving grace that distinguishes people. You see, it's not enough just to profess belief.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are Christian because they want hope. And they believe in it, but they don't really take it seriously. So they'd be easily converted. If some other religion comes along and says, actually, we can explain the Bible and we can explain all religions, in fact, in different ways. Hinduism has reincarnation and stuff, and that was the main point of that. And if someone comes along with a new religion and people believe it, then they are the wise virgins. And if people don't believe it and stick with the old religion of Christianity and the division that all the religions created, then they are the foolish ones.
Jesus said we must be born again of the Spirit of the living God.
So, I am the living God. My spirit is it lives inside lots of people, but not in everyone. This woman, I guess, is feeling my spirit because she's sensing some truth to it, but she doesn't know who the bride of Christ is. She doesn't know who Israel is. So, but yeah, that doesn't mean that she's not going to switch. If I told her this, and if I told myself and gave her a chance to believe me, she might switch. She might change. She might see where the mistakes that she was making in the past. But yeah, a lot of people have my spirit, but a lot of people are not understanding things right. When I say that this spirit is mine and that you're understanding it wrong, will they change and be reborn in their beliefs?
Well, in the parable in verse 6, Jesus said, "At midnight there was a cry, 'Behold, the bridegroom comes.'" The point the Lord was making is that we should watch and be ready. He's waited so long.
I think the bridegroom comes is actually talking about guys wanking.
To collect his bride, and coming at midnight means that his return will be both alarming and unexpected. Well, we're not the first generation to be looking for the coming of the Lord. Every generation has had this hope, except not every generation has had the sign that we have, the blossoming of the fig tree, the reestablishment of the nation of Israel, and the recapture of Jerusalem by the Jewish people. During the Middle Ages, when Muslims controlled the whole city of Jerusalem.
The whole world believes that Israel is a nation, is a country and stuff, and therefore if the whole world or all the richest countries are run by Christians, them setting up Israel is not something that was unpredictable. It's obviously something that the richer nations have set up. Why? Because it was part of their belief, it was part of their religion. Therefore it's not so unsuspected that a nation called Israel would be risen if the majority of people are Christians. And obviously Christianity has been the leading 80 years ago this was the leading religion, and the ones with the power ones with the money have the power, and the ones with the money won the war because they had the power and the money to do that. And then they've set up this nation because they wanted to prove that their religion is the truth. So it's not very unrespected, but it's not very unbelievable that has happened. But it would be unbelievable that someone like me can get lots and lots of people, singers and celebrities, to all promote me as being, Israel, the real Christ. That's going to be very unexpected.
Jerusalem. Even they had inklings about the second coming of Jesus, and so they sealed the eastern gate in the misplaced hopes that they could prevent the Messiah from re-entering the city. But when Jesus returned...
The city is actually just me. You can't prevent me from coming because I am not a building in the Middle East. I am a body that's been born in England, and therefore the gates have not been sealed because the gates are not really what they think they are. They're understanding everything wrong. But I think the fact that they've sealed that, though, is a little bit of a sign that people in the Middle East didn't actually want me to come.
Returns the second time, no sealed gate will be able to stop him. The scriptures say he will come with power and great glory as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. The glorious appearing of Jesus will happen after the Great Tribulation period and immediately prior to his promised millennial reign upon the throne of his ancestral...
Right now I don't have any power, I don't have any glory because no one believes me, but in 7 years or after I'm exposed, and then after the 7-year tribulation happens, that is when people will believe me, so that is when I'll have power and glory.
Father David for 1,000 years. Well, as I said earlier, the rapture of the church is a signless event, meaning nothing has to transpire before it happens. But in Matthew chapter 24, Jesus gave his followers at least 6 cataclysmic signs that will happen not prior to the rapture, but prior to his visible public second coming to earth. He said that immediately after the horrible and unprecedented days of the Great Tribulation, the first sign of his impending return will be the darkening of the sun. And consequently, secondly, the moon will not give its light.
That is ridiculous. There are loads of eclipses throughout the whole timeline. There's loads of things, moon not giving its light, This doesn't prove anything.
And then sign number 3, the darkened sky. That would be very dramatic indeed. The cross being the sign of mankind's redemption. Other theologians speculate that the sign will be the bright glory clouds that will accompany him. Can you see how these cosmic signs are 2 witnesses? And some speculate them to be Enoch and Elijah, or others say Elijah and Moses. And according to Revelation,
I think the 2 witnesses are mostly just a joke. If God's going to come down with witnesses, why 2? Wouldn't you want your God to have more than 2 witnesses? I'm the real God. I ain't going to come with 2 witnesses. I'm going to come with 1,000,000. I'm going to come with 1,000 witnesses at least. And therefore I don't want there to be 2 witnesses. If you're seeking a God that's only going to have 2 witnesses, I think that's just turning your religion into a foolish religion. What? So you're going to believe that God is God because of 2 witnesses? I mean, aren't you very stupid for doing that?
14:6. An angel will even be appointed to fly in mid-air to preach the everlasting gospel to those who live on the earth, to every nation and tribe and tongue and people. Yet it's prophesied that
one angel is going to come down, and that is going to be enough to convince the whole world.
Many of the earth dwellers will refuse the love of the truth, and they'll be willing instead to believe the lies of Satan and Antichrist.
I think if there is going to be stuff like this, in shows, there's a lot of shows where they have singers dangling down, coming down from the stadium, and it looks pretty cool. But yeah, a lot of people are going to be like, they're not angels, that's a deception. When really they're the ones that are falling for lies, because the singers and celebrities are angels. It's just they're in mortal form, because this is reality. Flying angels don't exist. But they can exist if you've got wires and stunt people helping, or people lifting them up through the wires.
And so finally, to their dismay, they will see the Son of Man arriving on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. During the tribulation period, the book of Revelation nevertheless tells us that after the rapture of the church, during the time of that tribulation, there will be a massive revival. Hallelujah. And it's important to press into God now for revival, because remember, we want the body of Messiah to be enlarged at maximum capacity before the rapture. God has stated in his word that he's not willing that any should perish, but that all should reach repentance. Well, all of this global evangelism demonstrates the long-suffering love and outreach of God. God will be sure that his message is heard all over the earth. Genuine repentance implies that we're going to change our thinking in order to be transformed by God's truth.
So you need to change everything you're believing, because I need to. I'm telling something completely different to what you believe, and I don't think you're ready. And I don't want all to be I don't want anyone to be lost. But it's 8 billion of you. Come on. I can't raise up 8 billion people. If I was to give you all 10 lives, or all another life until you're all smarter, and it's going to just take way too long. And then there has to be far less of you, and there needs to be more forests, needs to be more animals in the wild. There needs to be, you need to stop. Humans are like a cancer, and the more humans there are, the more the cancer grows, and the more the cancer grows, the less chance I can focus on, the future and on the world. And, you're sad if people die through cancer, but you need to realize that God actually sees it the other way around. God is seeing humans as cancer, and God sees people dying of cancer as actually a way of reducing the cancer that is overpopulation. And, if you look at it that way, then you need to see that the world needs to be balanced. It can't just be all your way. It can't just be you wanting more and more kids and more, just pollute the whole world with just as many people as possible. It can't be like that, because humans are a cancer, and you need to keep the cancer in a certain area, or lessen it, so that the cancer cells don't spread too much, and they're spreading too much. And therefore God sees a huge number of people on earth as just being more cancer cells that she does not want. And if you can't cope with the fact that God sees humans as cancer cells, it's fine to have a little bit of cancer. It's fine to be okay if it's fine if it doesn't grow too much, but it's gone way out of control. And she's trying to turn the cancer cells into gods, but she can't if there's too many people. And you know, there's going to be a lot of war, but it needs to happen, because you need to help cancer stop. You need to help cure God, the planet of the cancer that is the human species that is just taking over.